By the way, I think you were the only person after 15 years of investigating and knocking on doors and cold calling everybody in the world that called us, you know, and said like, hey, I have some information. I'm not even sure if it's going to be helpful. I think you said that.
Yes.
As you kind of piece together a timeline for me, I go, look, all of this makes sense because we've been investigating Epstein and Maxwell for a long time, and I know what her role was. And finally, somebody had kind of history that could go back 10, 12 years and kind of show us where it began so that we could understand the evolution better. Because it's super important. You don't even know that a lot of times.
Like Virginia, like I can't believe that we've never told you that when you came forward, you made a difference in her life. Like she carried on with the strength that she had, that she may not have done that, but for Anouska having come forward.
That these
and you gave her the strength. Like you are part of the reason that she had the strength to keep going because nobody had called and nobody was supporting her. So having another survivor support her, like I remember when we called her to tell her that someone else wanted to help, like, and her just breaking down in tears.
We do have a client, which I guess you'll share the story, but she was on the island with him not long before he was arrested. Okay. And he told her that, look, if you were ever in a bad situation, you have to kill yourself. Here's how you do it. There was two ways. Like there was an occasional house guest who he would say, go to the massage room, and somebody would go up there, and then that house guest, who happened to be a good friend of his, would also abuse that girl. There was also a time where some of the women had been with him since they were 17, 18, 19, and now they're 24 years old, totally reliant and dependent on him. He goes, she's too old for me. So he would start sending that person to his friends. But it wasn't for, he didn't make money off of this. This just wasn't how the organization worked.
Yeah.
They act as if, I think the world acts like he was an international pimp for the stars. That's just not the case. Well, I mean, what he's still doing with how he's hid money, so that when victims were paid, I mean, I think all of that was calculated on his part.
He's still trying to outsmart all of us from beyond the grave.
Yeah, like from beyond the grave. He's still working his game. Right, exactly. I mean, and I thought that no matter what he goes to prison forever. Eventually, at the end of the day, he ends up in prison. So I remember us talking right after he died. You know, you said you had all these emotions. I was like, me too.
Yeah.
Like I have so many conflicting emotions right now because that's not the way, like I feel like he escaped. Like this is not how it was supposed to end. But I'm looking at you.
Huh? Yeah. Don't worry, you're not that shiny. It looks fine.
These chairs are smaller than that chair.
I like this.
I can't really sit on that chair because it's too deep. And then my feet don't touch the ground and I look like a child. I can just call, I don't have to say Edwards Henderson, the crime victim. I'm just the crime victim law firm. It's enough words.
Yeah.
For sure.
Always different like whatever topic you want.
All in the arena of people who have overcome big challenges.
Okay. Well, I might need to lose this pillow though. There. Now I can stand up.
Do your feet reach the ground?
Yeah.
That was the problem I would have. Yeah. Hi, my name's Anouska DiGiorgio, and welcome to the Empowered Exchange podcast. My guests today on the Empowered Exchange podcast are Brad Edwards and Brittany Henderson of the Crime Victim Law Firm. I'm excited to chat with them about Epstein, about Maxwell, about how it works when you want to report something, how it works when you want to bring a claim against somebody who has victimized you. And I'm looking forward to talking about the way that I know them and how I connected with them. So welcome. Hi, Brad.
Thanks for having us.
Hi.
I'm so happy to see you both.
We miss you. It's been a while.
I know. I was talking earlier with someone. I was like, wait, have I seen you guys since? I haven't seen you since the trial. Right?
That's true. Yeah.
It feels as though that couldn't be possible, but it is. And I was looking at the pictures of us from, I was going to say backstage.
Yeah.
Trial.
Yeah.
You know, but it's so funny. I think it was kind of like backstage because it was such a circus.
It was. And
the amount of drama there was, the amount of press there was surrounding that was really like a circus, like a performance. And I'm sure that because the two of you deal with a lot of high profile cases, you see a lot of the press getting involved, a lot of this kind of circus, right?
Honestly, the way that you handled it, though, was pretty amazing. I think for anyone that's listening, you being backstage in the circus and dancing around and like laughing kind of the sillies out before you went on stage to testify, like that's the kind of thing that we now tell our other clients that they should do in honor of you, because it really like put you into the right mind frame.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a sort of nervous trauma response. And I think a lot of people misunderstand some of the responses to trauma that people have, and that there's no real like one set, this is the way people respond. And for me, humor's always been a way to deflect from what I'm really feeling and kind of separate myself from it a bit. And I think sometimes you just have to, you have to kind of shake it out. Right?
Exactly. And it's appropriate. I think that that's an important thing to touch on, is that it's appropriate to feel like you need to be silly or to act in a way that makes you feel ready and makes you feel right. I think some people would be worried about doing that, in such a serious moment. And
I think that's one of the things we always tell our clients that most lawyers don't, is like, if we take your case or take your cause on, don't change your life. Like, do what makes you feel comfortable. You don't have to monitor who you talk to, what you're going to dress like, those kind of things. Just live your life and try to be comfortable. And if there's problems, we deal with it.
Right.
And I thought that's like, that was a great part about kind of how you dealt with the stress at that moment. I was like, let me distract myself.
Practicing the way I was going to walk in.
your accent.
And
that was amazing.
I kind of wanted to offer a bit of context of how I know the two of you and what led to this, because it's been a long time that I've been connected with the two.
Over 10 years, right? Like 10 years probably.
Over 10 years. Over 10 years, because my daughter's 11 and I think my daughter was about 1. And I remember, so, none of this was publicized. None of this was in the news. And of course, anything that did come up that was at all press-worthy, I would somehow find it. And then I read something somewhere, because I think what people don't realize is, as a survivor, I went on and lived my life. And I was lucky enough and fortunate enough that I got sober. I found 12-step programs. I found a little bit of therapy. I found a great support system. So my life was carrying on. But this secret and this truth was always just under the surface. And it was ready to jump out and sort of sabotage me at any moment. And so I would look up things to do with Epstein and Maxwell. And so I would periodically just Google what was going on. And I never expected that either of them would ever be held accountable. And when I saw that there was a civil case against Maxwell. And
we were representing Virginia at the time.
Yes, you were. And I looked up who was representing her. It's emotional.
I know, especially because of Virginia.
I remember where I was sitting when I got the call. So yeah,
I remember where I was sitting, and I reached out, and I wasn't entirely, because, and this is one of the other manifestations that are possible with victims, is I wasn't expecting that I would have anything of value to contribute, but I wanted to try. And I remember talking to you, and, you seemed quite engaged. And I was thinking, this isn't a big deal because I don't really have anything to offer, And you seemed quite excited about it almost. And now I have context to that. And then I remember this, you said you'd send somebody over to talk with me. And I'd had a lot of history of talking to people about things and things going wrong from there. So I remember you sent this lady out to talk to me, and she arrived and I was like, well, I cannot trust this person whatsoever. I should tell her very little, And I remember, it took a while for me to build confidence in you. Because I had been betrayed by people that were meant to be trustworthy. I think
we talked on the phone more than 10 times before you ever started telling me really the substance.
Right. And that's one of the great...
But I knew there was a lot there.
How?
Well, I knew right away, because remember, as soon as you called, I knew your name, because your name had been in the black book, right? So it was like part of the Rolodex. And then as you kind of pieced together a timeline for me, I go, look, all of this makes sense, because we've been investigating Epstein and Maxwell for a long time, and I know what her role was. And finally, somebody had kind of history that could go back 10, 12 years and kind of show us where it began so that we could understand the evolution better. Because at that point in time, we'd only talked to one other person who was very skittish, didn't want to talk to us at all, and just gave us tidbits. And finally, by the way, I think you were the only person after 15 years of investigating and knocking on doors and cold calling everybody in the world that called us. and said like, hey, I have some information. I'm not even sure if it's going to be helpful. I think you said that.
Yes. Yeah.
But
that's
here it
exactly
is.
what I said.
But it also was helpful no matter what you were going to say, because it was someone who was coming forward to support Virginia too. Someone else who had information to corroborate not just her story, but like made her feel seen and made her feel like what she was doing.
But she was describing the same thing you had described from 10 years earlier. And you don't know one another, and you're telling a similar story about the same characters. Yes. You're going, okay, this has to be true.
There's no way they could have both made up the same thing.
Right, because you were telling me things that Virginia had told us, but we had not made public. So you're saying the identical thing. You were going, okay, but this is the MO that these
and you gave her the strength. Like, you are part of the reason that she had the strength to keep going, because nobody had called and nobody was supporting her. So having another survivor support her, like, I remember when we called her to tell her that someone else wanted to help, like, and her just breaking down in tears.
This is the first time I'm hearing this.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah. But
because the level of courage that it took her to come forward, and her genuine belief that as soon as I say something, everyone's going to come out of the woodwork. But then nobody did.
Yeah.
And we know there are hundreds of victims.
Yes.
And we've represented hundreds of women now, and you're the only one.
And I want to say that the fact that you were so patient with me, and the fact that you were willing to invest in so much time, because I had spoken to another attorney who had been recommended by a friend of mine, and my experience was completely different. My experience was, it was like being grilled, and it was like they had a story that they wanted to put together, and they wanted to kind of like shove me into it. Right. And I was like, I'm not going to do that, because the very nature of the experiences that I'd had meant that I wasn't going to be bullied, and I wasn't going to be asked to perform under duress in any situation ever again. So it was because you were patient and you were kind and you put no pressure on me whatsoever.
I think that most attorneys have, an ego and an agenda and whatever. And like, we like to go into it where we just don't have an agenda. Our agenda is whatever yours is.
Right.
So as long as you go into it thinking, hey, look, this is somebody who wants to talk, and let them share whatever they want. And then at the end of the call, we can talk about our options and things like that, but also like never pressuring somebody who's been through what you've been through. And never, and letting you know, like, you have no pressure. No matter what, you can pull the plug on this at any time.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
It is really
important.
And
we hate even having those first meetings on the phone, because it's such a personal thing that you're sharing. And so being face-to-face and understanding, it's not just going to be your lawyer. It has to really kind of become your friend, for you to feel comfortable sharing. I think that's why we both love what we do, because it's not just a transaction. It's really.
That's why we call Brittany the victim whisperer, because like
the
victim whisperer, because she has like a list now of 100 people that call her all the time, whether they're could be pulled over by the cops, or it's
because your case
getting married.
The case ends and your life continues and your healing process continues, and so you had these people that were support system. You can't just abandon
them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's the same with what I do. Is whether it's somebody who I was working with 15 years ago or 10 years ago. I mean, as I get older, it's just more and more people that I speak to every week.
Right.
And it's crazy, because it gets to be a lot of people.
Right. Yeah. And it's weddings and it's babies. Now it's the fun stuff, but then there are also hard days too. And you feel like you have that same.
Yeah. We both actually officiated clients' weddings.
Really? Really? Okay, that's amazing. Yeah. So after that happened and I'd reached out, I really still wasn't ready, and I didn't even consider that it was something that I would participate on, mainly because of the fear around Epstein and the retaliation. And there was just no way. There was no way I was going to put myself in a courtroom with Epstein. It was more than, it felt like the downside would weigh out. It would outweigh the upside. And then, when he died, and, I say that purposefully.
We'll get there.
We will. When he died, I remember feeling such sort of a bunch of conflict, in a conflict. And I remember calling you and asking you if you would work with me. And you were like, of course. And I wasn't expecting that, because I didn't think I had anything of value to contribute still. And, it's funny how your internal narrative can completely override anything that anyone outside is telling you. So for the first time, I actually kind of felt like there was a possibility of resolution for me.
Yeah.
And of having some kind of backing, because I just dealt with this by myself. So going forward to then the, going to speak at the dismissal hearing with Judge Berman, which was such an extraordinary moment.
One of the most empowering things that survivors have ever done. I mean, it's like, how many, 25 spoke at the same...
And you didn't
area? I've never seen that.
We didn't know each other, but we had that trauma bonding.
Yeah.
Which is, by the way, trauma bonding is so powerful. It's like being connected with someone. It's like having a best friend that you've never met. And you love them so much that you want to kind of like, you would throw your life down for them because you know what they've been through, because you felt it, because you've lived it. And so you just want to like give them something, and standing there with everybody shoulder to shoulder and having the two of you there supporting me and supporting the others that you were representing was such a powerful moment. And then, but it was also because it was kind of, obviously, we didn't know he was going to die. We didn't know we were going to go and do that. And it was like, do you want to come? Okay. Do you want to speak? Okay. Do you want to use your name? I don't know.
Yeah, everything was so impromptu and you had to just figure it out.
And then I remember, when you asked me, do I want to speak in my own name? And I said, yes. I really had no idea what the connotations were for that. I don't think any of us really kind of understood it because it was unprecedented. And I mean, am I right in saying that's the first time that alleged survivors have been invited to come and speak?
Yeah, I mean, usually the only context in which that would ever happen is at a sentencing, right? Like there's an actual criminal trial and then victims get to speak or survivors get to speak at the sentencing. But this was the first time a case is dismissed. And I think what the judge did was unprecedented. Yes. I mean, just even inviting, and a lot of that happened because of the Crime Victims' Rights Act, right? It's like finally somebody taught the judges and everybody else what that even means for victims to have rights at various stages. And I thought that Berman handled this perfectly.
Well, for a judge too to be part of a healing process for survivors, that's unprecedented.
Like that gave a lot of people closure they never would have gotten.
What a powerful and elegant man Judge Berman is. I mean, really, Yeah,
and the few people that criticized him on the defense side, I think, just look like idiots.
Yeah, I mean, most people who criticize someone who does something as noble as that is doing something wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, sort of fast forwarding to then I got whisked off and had an interview with the FBI, which also was, I'd had this epic event, major life event of speaking in front of these people, in front of the judge, in front of Epstein's attorneys, in front of a wall of press, standing with my fellow survivors. And then, as if that wasn't like overstimulating for my nervous system enough, I'm then taken into some room in the courthouse and I talked to the FBI for, I don't know how long. It felt like 7 hours.
I think it was like 2 hours.
It was a long time.
It was a long time.
Was it something you didn't know that you'd be being interviewed that day?
No, I think that we talked about it in the courtroom, right? Like
in the court, yes.
Right
After
then.
this, do you want do you want to have another 2 hours of a completely unprecedented experience where you're...
Would you have wanted to have more preparation, or do you think that it was a good thing that you kind of just had to go with the flow and get through the interview?
It's hard to tell. I mean, maybe I would have said no. Sometimes the best
You
thing...
did great, though. And look what happened. Right. I mean, everything turned out right, and you were a major part of that. I mean, obviously.
Yeah. I mean...
You're a necessary ingredient to, like, justice being served.
Thank you. I couldn't have done it without either of you. I mean, going back to Epstein committing suicide, and there's a lot of talk around, there's a lot of conspiracy theory, and so recently it's been said by the Department of Justice that they have evidence to support the fact that he absolutely committed suicide. I know that, Brad, I know that you believe he committed suicide. I know that I do not believe he did. And that's okay. Like,
yes,
that's okay.
We can agree to disagree on things, but
disagree. We're not married.
Thank God I agree.
That doesn't change anything.
Right. But I want to hear about, I mean, first of all, I haven't seen the evidence that they have because they haven't released it yet.
Right.
I also know that there's, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, really, at all. What I go by is I know personality types because that's what I do. You guys know the law and you know criminals and you know what you know. And it's just so hard for me to believe that somebody who was a clinical narcissistic sociopath would make that choice.
Yeah, but I think that he did it because of that. So, I mean, think of it like this. I'll just put some pieces together for you. Mm-hmm. He's a person who's always in total control of everybody around him, meaning he controls all of his inner circle of girls. They can't leave him. He controls his attorneys, his accountants, like literally everybody around him. And now all of a sudden he's in a cage and he's being controlled. He's now eating bologna out of a bowl. We do have a client, which I guess you'll share the story, but she was on the island with him not long before he was arrested. Okay. And he told her that, look, if you are ever in a bad situation, you have to kill yourself. Here's how you do it. And he essentially described for her basically exactly how he ended up killing himself. So, I mean, I think the combination of like being under total control and thinking he's never getting out. I mean, like, let's face it, he was never, ever going to get out of jail. And he knew he was going to be killed. Like, everybody in the whole jail wanted to kill him. I mean, for what he was in jail for, there wasn't a prisoner in there that didn't want to kill him. I think there were other people outside of prison that also wanted to kill him. But I think for somebody as narcissistic as that, knowing he's going to be killed, that taking his own life and depriving them of getting to control him, I think that was his big thing.
It's also interesting, though, because you are not alone in thinking that he did not commit suicide.
I'd say it's half and half.
Of
half
our
clients.
survivors, half of our clients, there's nothing we could ever say to convince them that he killed himself. So I think that's kind of an interesting psychological component to it.
I'm willing to be convinced because I think being able to change your mind on something is essential to critical thinking. Mm-hmm. But I just don't see it in the man. And I had so many interactions. And one of the traits of somebody that is that personality type is really to never really concede to complete defeat, and always present themselves as like, I didn't do it, I didn't do anything wrong, I'm wrong, they're making me wrong, and screw them, I'm gonna just see, I'll rise from this.
Yeah, I think 2 days before he commits suicide, though, he changed his will and he does all of these kind of gamesmanship with what his estate is about to become. Mm-hmm. I think he saw that as a win. I mean, what he's still doing with how he's hid money so that when victims were paid, I mean, I think all of that was calculated on his part.
He's still trying to outsmart all of us from beyond the grave.
Yeah, like from beyond the grave. He's still working his game.
Yeah, which is also speaks to the fact that people like that are never sorry. They're never remorseful. They're never trying to make amends. Mm-hmm. They're always trying to continue to punish people who have exposed them.
Right. You remember the bail hearing? There were some of the women spoke at the bail hearing 10 feet away from him. Yeah. And he just a completely callous look on his face, like didn't even make eye contact with them. And that took so much bravery to get up and stand right next to him and tell the world about what he had done to them.
I couldn't have done it.
He genuinely thought he did nothing wrong. I mean, he said that to me.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, also one of the things that was so impactful for me was, and I knew you less at the time, but your personal investment in, I mean, like, it was an obsession, right?
Was? No, I'm just kidding.
It was an obsession.
I felt like the only way to get closure for me is to like finish it, whatever that means. Mm-hmm. So there was no way to get to the finish line without being kind of obsessed with the process.
But it was the truth. I think it was so frustrating because you knew what the truth was, but the world didn't, and he wasn't able to get the truth out for so many years that you just weren't going to give up until...
That was frustrating, but also like the side stories and the conspiracy theories and all the distractions were difficult too.
Well, and he made it personal to you too, by personally attacking you.
Personally sued me.
Personally suing you, doing things to follow your family and stuff. And I think I know your personality type as well as I know his. And
The more personal it became, the more personal it became.
yeah. And like, you were not going to let go no matter what. Right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, and I thought that no matter what is, he goes to prison forever. Eventually, at the end of the day, he ends up in prison. So I remember us talking right after he died. You said you had all these emotions. I was like, me too.
Yeah.
Like, I have so many conflicting emotions right now because that's not the way, like, I feel like he escaped. Like, this is not how it was supposed to end.
And for me, I'm never glad that someone's dead, because I think that's, there's a sadness about that. But at the same time, I knew that I wouldn't be able to go through confronting him in person. So there was a relief in him, first of all, not being around, so I was able to participate in that, but also that he wouldn't be able to hurt anyone else, directly.
Yeah, and up till the very last day, he was still doing that almost daily. I mean, his routine hardly changed.
Exactly.
Yeah. He might have modified the age slightly so that he, wouldn't be so easy to get him, but his behavior, his obsession with almost exploiting young women was just out of control, and like, he didn't even try to control it.
Yeah.
And you say that you wouldn't have been able to do it, but you did do it. You did do this with Maxwell. And I think
I did. But it was different with her. There was a physicality about Epstein that I know that you're both familiar with that was intimidating in a different way. And one of the manifestations of trauma for me is literally feeling physically intimidated and disassociating. So I think that's sort of, and it's just different. And, one of the things with Maxwell is that she and I had very similar lives in childhood, very similar lives. And there was, and it's one of the things that made me so useful, but it's also for the case, but it's also one of the things that made it so difficult, because I really identified with her on many levels. And so the stepping into a role of holding her accountable felt like a betrayal on some level.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. I remember when we were out in LA and you saying that.
Yeah.
But all you did was just tell the truth.
Yeah.
And that's what we kept saying. Just tell the truth. And wherever the cards fall, they fall.
Yeah.
But that's the control, right? Like, that's the level of control that they maintain over you even all of these years later. Like,
I don't think you realized how important it was, what you were saying, until the result, until like she's found guilty and you're like,
I didn't.
Right.
And there were moments, as leading up to the trial, very soon before the trial, where I almost just didn't do it.
I remember.
But
I'm glad you did.
Do you remember the feeling you had when the closing arguments happened and you knew that what you had done actually made a difference?
I do. And I remember that it was a conversation, because we had a meeting with on Zoom or whatever with the district attorney, and I remember thinking at the end of the meeting with them, like, I'm not going to do it. And then you called me. and I was kind of irritated with you, because I knew that I couldn't not do it now. And that you knew that.
Well, we had just gone so far.
Yeah.
Like past the point of no return.
And you were right. And what you said was, I think you'll be sorry if you don't do this. And you were right. I would have been,
Yeah.
And it did work out in the way that it was meant to.
Yeah, well, you were an integral piece of the puzzle. So the whole puzzle sort of falls apart if you don't have the real pieces.
But you felt like you had a choice in that conversation.
I mean,
because I think that's important too.
Yeah.
I think a lot of lawyers would be like, no, you have to do, and put pressure in a way that I felt like you didn't do in that circumstance, which.
But at this point also, I mean, we had a 7-year relationship.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like you were just a lawyer talking to me. You were talking to me as my friend.
As a friend.
Yeah.
Right.
And also outlining for me, I think, there are attorneys who will pressure people for their own ego and to their own end, and to convince someone to do something that's going to be good for their career or their whatever. And then there are people that can give you perspective that maybe you hadn't considered. And that's what you did.
I think that that's what we try to do in every circumstance is let me just advise you what I think is best for you.
Yeah.
What path, you have a few different paths you can take here, but if we look into the future,
Yeah.
which one are you going to be happiest with?
Yeah.
And
I've seen you do that with other clients. I've not only who've been involved in, in the Epstein or the Maxwell debacle, but in other areas. I've seen both of you walk people through, and I've seen you also really help people when there's no benefit to either of you or to your firm.
Yeah.
And that's what's different. Attorneys don't have a great reputation, and especially in this area.
Attorneys earn their bad reputation for the most part. And so I like to start every single conversation with the client and say, let's figure out what your options are and what you want out of this. And then let me advise you what to do. And a lot of times it is bringing a lawsuit's not the best thing for you to do. It's like, it's not going to be the best thing for your life. So let's go a different direction. And there's usually a way to kind of solve a problem for the bigger picture for that person. It should never be about the attorney. That's just...
Yeah. Sure.
Well, because attorneys are one resource, right, that are available to survivors. There's therapy. There are like different modalities of therapy that we can bring people to. And so even when there's not a case, I think half of the people that we consult with end up leaving and going to therapy rather than having a lawsuit. And I think a lot of lawyers don't explore that avenue because it's not relevant to being a lawyer, but it's relevant to that person being able to heal and move on with their lives.
I think that's a really good point, and it's one of the things that I wanted to cover, because sometimes people come to me as a case manager and they're looking for therapeutic support from me or my team, and then but they seem to have no idea, as I had no idea, that there was a way of holding these people accountable that I hadn't considered. And so if somebody comes to you, and what they often ask me, knowing I'm a survivor, is, well, what does that look like? What does that, in what order does this happen? And so when people come to you who've been, suffered abuse, what is the protocol? What is the procedure? In what order do things happen?
In a perfect world, which is the world we try to create every time, is in-person meetings. Like first meet in person and let them know that, hey, look, we're not like most lawyers. We're not going to pressure you ever to do anything. Tell us as much as you want to tell us. If we have questions, we'll ask. If you don't want to tell us, don't tell us. From us, you're always going to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like, it may not be what you want to hear. If we end up telling you don't have a case, we're going to tell you that, and we're going to tell you why. If we're going to tell you you do have a case, but it's probably not good for you to bring it, I'm going to tell you why. You may go to another lawyer. They'll file the lawsuit, and 2 years from now, you can be upset you did it. But like, you're going to hear the truth from us, whatever that is. And then here's what the process will look like. We can start a civil process. We can go to the state attorneys. We can go to the FBI. There's usually a bunch of different options, but like working through what is best for that person, because every person's not the same. For some people, you look at them and you go, okay, they're strong. They're going to want to stand up to their accuser. They're going to want to go through what the grueling process of discovery and depositions are. And there's other people that you go, look, there's 2 more years in a statute of limitations. You need to get stronger first. Like, we need to help you heal before you can bring a lawsuit, because a lawsuit of this nature, it can be grueling. Some of the questions they ask in discovery, they're not comfortable for anybody. And the fact that they get to attack on the same subject matter that is the subject matter of the lawsuit, it doesn't seem fair, but that's just part of it. So like knowing that up front and kind of timing it right and making sure that the person is ready.
And a lot of what we do too, which I think people don't know, is deal with the criminal process with clients, because if it's the FBI, they're representing the United States, or DOJ, right? If it's in a state court, they're representing the state of Florida, the state of California. For our clients, they don't have representation per se in the criminal case. So sometimes they get lost in the shuffle, or they're confused. They don't know when they're testifying or what they're testifying to or why. So we kind of act as crime victims' rights lawyers and help them navigate the criminal process so they feel like their voice is being heard, even if they're not being told everything that's going on. So I think that's been a big value to a lot of our clients, is understanding the criminal process.
Yeah. It's, I think what's so crucial is for victims or survivors to understand that they have rights, to also understand, as you say, that the process is very grueling, and to be able to gather information and get information from attorneys with the understanding that they may or may not choose to follow through on that, and that there's no judgment either way. I have tens of women that I've worked with who've been assaulted and raped, and some of them whilst under my care. And having that sort of disclaimer of there is no judgment if you don't report this. There is no judgment if you don't follow through. Because sometimes that is the healthiest choice. Sometimes to protect yourself, you have to not report it. And that's real sometimes. Yep. You know, maybe you're still in danger. Maybe there's someone who's very retaliatory, and that might be the best choice for you, and that there's no judgment, you know?
That's why it's important to have people like you, though, also that serve as an intermediary, I think, for survivors, because, again, a lot of lawyers would say, like, you need to report this. You have to report this now. If you don't, whatever. And that's not how it works in real life, you know, for a human.
And there can be a lot of shaming, you know, from people who are like, oh, don't you want to protect other people from this person? And it's like, well, yeah, I do, but I also don't want to make my life worse after I've already been through this.
The first thing that everybody should do is, look, that's what we want to tell them, like, do what's best for you.
Yeah.
Do what's best for your life. And they usually tell us, well, I just went to another lawyer. The lawyer told me I can't drink in public anymore. I'm not allowed to wear short skirts. I'm like, who is this person? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah,
live your life however you want to live it.
And also, the defense is going to know that you've just suddenly changed your behavior based on the fact that you bringing a lawsuit. So you didn't behave like that before, but now you're defensively and then you're defensive. So maybe you're making it up.
Well, somebody who comes to our office after being assaulted, and now they have all the stress of having to modify their life, and that's just
right.
But it's very real, too. I mean, especially with Epstein, back in the earlier cases in 2008, 2009, 2010, the women were being attacked for coming forward, and it was their fault, and look at how they're behaving, and look where they came from. Right. There was never any acceptance of responsibility, and there is attacking based on social media and other things.
Right. I mean, there seems to be only within, this is something I've talked about over and over again, but only within sexual abuse, sexual assault, rape, there's this kind of thing where, okay, if you're a drug addict, you can't be raped. If you willingly go to a location, you can't be raped. You can't be you don't have that in any other scenario. I always say, like, if you get mugged on the street, no one's like, well, like, did you have money in your pocket? Because then you kind of were asking for it. You know, that conversation never happens. No one's like, oh, you couldn't remember every single detail about the person who mugged you, so you probably just made the whole thing up.
It has gotten better over the last, let's call it 8 to 10 years, but because it was so bad before. Yeah. But still, you're right. I mean, it's the victim shaming still exists. Yeah,
totally. And that's, you know, part of what happened to Virginia was the victim shaming.
Yeah, I mean, she was the bravest person that I've ever met. I mean, to tell her story, and then we did the same thing. Like, you don't have to do this. And her initial coming forward was, wait, but I understand that you're handling this pro bono case, the Crime Victim Rights Act case, against the government, and I have something to say because I was flown as a minor on the plane, so they have no excuse for giving him this deal. I want to come and I want to just tell you everything. Yeah. And then when we even sat down with her, we go, look, you're talking about a lot of powerful people at one time. In fact, like, you want to just go one at a time? Because I feel like this could get overwhelming. She's like, absolutely not. I mean, everybody has to come down. Yeah. Like, okay, here we go.
And I mean, that leads me to another point, because there's a lot of conspiracy theories going on at the moment about this list, about the Epstein list. And I think I can really understand why people who were not involved in this situation might draw that conclusion. But that's just not how it was.
That's just not how the organization was set up.
No.
It was set up for him.
Yes.
Like, this is a sexual abuser who designed a scheme along with Ghislaine. I think they designed it together. But it was so that it could almost turn into a factory of young women who are duped to coming to his house under false pretense so that then he could abuse them personally.
Right. And if there was somebody who sort of was passing through and happened to it's happened to serve their purpose, then perhaps, yes, by default they were dragged in and it ended up that something happened.
There was two ways. Like, there was an occasional house guest,
right,
who he would say go to the massage room, and somebody would go up there, and then that house guest, who happened to be a good friend of his, would also abuse that girl. There was also a time where some of the women had been with him since they were 17, 18, 19, and now they're 24 years old, totally reliant and dependent on him. And he goes, she's too old for me. So he would start sending that person to his friends. But it wasn't for, he didn't make money off of this. This just wasn't how the organization worked.
Yeah.
They act as if, I think the world acts like he was an international pimp for the stars. That's just not the case.
Well, and I guess there's, with AI and everything, it's so difficult because, there's something that was put out about Virginia, which sounded like a voice recording of hers, which it's clear to me that it's contrived, but that got sent around, probably a couple of million times. And there's a bunch of people for whom they're attached to that narrative. And this helps them not have to say, oh, actually, I got that wrong.
Well, and to be clear, there is not a list of other men that participated in any of these things. There are other men who participated who either have been sued or settled privately or haven't been ever approached. But the idea of this list came from the media.
I know.
And it was like, the media says there's a list, so now we're going to chase. The FBI making some announcement that there is no list. Like, that's not news. There was never a list.
I mean, it's just so frustrating for me to see this constantly. I mean, people write to me constantly, like, what about the list? Where's the list? And are we going to get the names? And no, there are no names. Why is
But the world loves to do that. I mean, even when the whole Diddy thing happened, they thought everybody in Hollywood was at these white parties and these great,
Participating.
what the world
drinking
does.
baby's blood.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And he has like all these 9-year-olds back there. And meanwhile, you saw the trial. It's just, it's not reality.
It's not helpful to survivors either. Seeing narratives like this and watching everything get blown out of proportion in the media. Like, I don't think the media realizes how harmful that can be to people who actually lived that trauma.
Yeah, I mean, the way the media is now and the ability to widely disseminate misinformation has become a problem.
I mean, to be clear, there are a couple of men who have not been held accountable who should have been.
Yep.
And they may never be. That being said, that's got nothing to do with a list or not a list. That's the list that people are talking about is some like ongoing sort of like a scroll that's unrolled and it goes all the way down to the floor kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, not helpful, as you say, to survivors. So, I mean, being involved in this and the trial and the entire thing completely changed me as a person. It changed me in ways that I'm really pleased about. It made me grow in ways that I never would have if I hadn't experienced these things. It made me reach inside me for a deeper level of compassion for myself and for others.
And you have 2 good friends.
And I have 2 good friends who are married now.
Yeah.
And you're changing the lives of other people because of your experience.
Thank you.
That's really a cool thing to be able to take, just not the weight off of your own shoulders for yourself, but to carry everyone else's weight around for them. You should be very proud of what
And you're a
doing.
powerful voice that other survivors listen to and look up to. And I think that's super important. You don't even know that a lot of times.
Like Virginia, like I can't believe that we've never told you that when you came forward, you made a difference in her life. Like, she carried on with the strength that she had, that she may not have done that, but for Anouska having come forward at the beginning.
She just needed somebody
Yeah.
to say, to validate any aspect of her story. It's like, wait, this happened to me too.
Yeah. So how do you think going through that experience changed the 2 of you personally?
That experience being just the whole Epstein thing.
Maxwell, whole thing.
I mean, there was no way to like not be totally like engulfed in the whole story and getting to the bottom of it and finding justice, because until we were able to achieve some level of justice, there was never going to be closure for anybody. With Brittany, she's worked at the firm since 2014, and that was the first case that was ever handed to her. We worked on that project together, and at the end of it, I realized how smart she was. I called my other partners, was like, she's mine. Yeah. And
you told me to.
Yeah.
We never knew how far you would take that.
Yeah. I didn't know then. So yeah. So then, I essentially gave her a choice. Like, listen, you can be a class action lawyer, a mergers acquisitions lawyer, or you can do what I do, which is just help people. Like, that's all we want to do. Use your skill and your power and your appreciation for the law to help human beings. And she's like, I'm all in, like right away.
Mm-hmm. And I think having your whole career be this, like, I think I developed an empathy that I didn't realize I was developing. My whole entire career has only been really getting to communicate and help our clients. And so I've been privileged to be able to become the type of lawyer I am through empathy. And I think empathy is missing a lot from a lot of lawyers, and I don't know any other way because it's just been what we do.
Through that case also, I think it's held true through hundreds of different cases now, but it's like you realize the power disparity is a major component to abuse.
Yeah.
It's like there's always this massive power disparity, and that felt like, wait, that's like a bully situation that I don't like. So it made it, I guess it kind of, it shaped not just my career, because I always represented crime victims, but it was like a certain situation. It pointed us in the direction of like where there's the greatest power disparity and there's somebody who can actually use our help in one way or the other. Whether
Were you bullied when you were a kid?
No, I wasn't, but I hated bullies as a kid. I hated, like, I played football and I hated like the kids on the football team that would like pick on little kids at school.
Yeah.
That would be the time where I would get in the middle of it. I found myself in the most confrontations for that reason. Is like
championing
that's
other
just
people.
not right.
Championing people who couldn't stand up for themselves.
Yeah, and giving a voice when other people won't believe you. We imagine when we met with Virginia for the first time, and the story she's telling, you're like, wait, how did you even meet this person? And it takes someone to believe you, to be able to substantiate your voice.
And I'm so devastated at the loss of Virginia. And so grateful to her at the same time.
Yeah.
And I really do think, though, that the work she did was so important, and she left the world a better place than she found it.
Without any doubt.
So, and I think we'll all remember her for that more than anything.
It was pretty amazing. After she passed away, we had a memorial in Florida, just a small memorial with us, Sigrid Macaulay, one of her lawyers, and we invited a bunch of our clients. And I think there were like 20 survivors that were there. I don't think any of them had ever met Virginia.
Maybe one. Right?
Yeah, maybe one, maybe two. But
they were just there to just because Virginia did so much for them.
And they stood up and they shared how she changed their lives, how she gave them the courage to come forward, how they would never have spoken out but for her. It was like a room full of all kinds of tears, but it was similar to standing in the motion to dismiss hearing, and having just the collective power of change and power of what you ladies have done.
Yeah. So what's next for the crime victim law firm?
Yeah, so...
keep getting bad guys.
Yeah, I mean that's what we do, but we decided probably 2-3 years ago to reduce our case count to never more than 10 cases.
Okay.
So, and we like to say, like, we'll take causes, not cases.
Right.
Like, if it's something we truly believe in, that's where we want to spend all of our efforts. Currently, I think that what the world was sort of missing is focusing on when males are abused by other males. So we filed the class action case against Abercrombie and Fitch because what that CEO did was terrible. I mean, it's like plucking out male models, knowing that because of machismo or whatever, they're not going to tell anybody, right? So these are men who are sitting here with the secret for many, many years, have wives or girlfriends that have no idea about this. And we have a super brave class rep who was like, look, I'll put my name out there knowing there's 99 others behind me that don't want their name out there for fair reason. Yeah. And this time, though, the FBI called us almost right away. It was like, okay, how serious is this?
They know who you are.
I'm like, this is serious. And then, fast forward like 7 months, and they arrested the guys based on basically our complaint. So I like now people listen. I mean, we were saying this about Epstein for so long. I was going to the prosecutors and trying to tell them, like, this is what you should do, and nobody wanted to hear it.
Which that's kind of amazing too, though, right? Like the Abercrombie survivors wouldn't really ever put two and two together, that the Epstein survivors helped in their case, in the sense that now they don't have to wait all these extra years for someone to prosecute for justice because there's precedent being set, kind of laying the stones, if you will.
I think it's also good that if we say something, they know there's credibility behind it. And we're not a lawyer that's just putting stuff out there. Like there's too much of that right now. But
for sure.
And the modeling industry, I mean, there has to be systematic change. And while it feels like the change has started, it hasn't finised.
It's not there yet.
No, it's bad.
It's
so
scary.
exploitive. Yeah.
It's bad. Yeah. Well, I'm really excited that you guys came today.
Yeah, we just want to hang out with you.
That I got to see you after and couldn't even realize that it had been since the trial that I hadn't seen you, and that you're happy as individuals, that you're happy together, and that you've made so many moves to help the legal system to catch up to where they should be, and to help victims feel that they have permission to come forward, that they're protected, that they have people who are willing to listen, willing to believe, willing to represent, willing to protect. And that helps not only the people who are going through it right now, but the next generation and the children of those victims that you might represent, and the trajectory that goes through all the generations, you know?
You should be very proud too of what you've done to stand up for people, because your little girl is going to grow up in a world that's a little bit better because of you and your clients. So even this podcast that you're doing and continuing to raise awareness, like, thank you from people like us.
Yeah, thank you for everything you do.
Yeah. Thank you both too, and we'll have to do it again soon.
Yeah.
Okay.